All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of DIY Investing Education. And today we're going to talk about what is a dividend versus a distribution. I personally mix them up all the time. It's very common to do so, but they do have two separate definitions. So let's define them. And by the end of the video, now that you know what a dividend stock is versus growth stock, how to calculate and what is dividend yield, how to calculate it yourself, let's talk about what is a dividend versus a distribution. And again, a lot of people mix them up interchangeably, including myself. So a dividend, technically or officially, is a profit from a corporation. So if you buy one stock like TD Bank, for example, they give out a dividend. It's sometimes also referred to as a Canadian eligible dividend. Okay, and in the US they have the same thing, right? They have dividend stocks in the US like JP Morgan and Procter and Gamble and other banks, etc., American Express, whatever. They also, if you buy that individual stock, that individual security, they're giving out a dividend, which is technically literally a share of the company's profit. So that's officially what a dividend is. And of course, if you're Canadian and you're buying a Canadian corporation, it's actually called a eligible Canadian dividend. So these are taxed differently. These dividends, for example, are taxed differently versus other sources of income like capital gains or interest income. And by the way, we're going to talk all about taxes in future episodes as well. So dividend, again, guys, just to make sure you understand, is actually a share of a company's profit. So it's what you technically get if you buy an individual stock like TD Bank or Royal Bank or any Canadian, Bell Canada or TELUS. If you buy the individual stocks, you're getting dividends. That's a dividend. Now, ETFs give out distributions. So single stocks give out dividends. ETFs, because they're not publicly listed companies, that it's giving out a distribution. So that's really the difference. Okay, so pretty much dividends and distributions kind of work the same way regarding how to calculate the annual yield of one, like covered in the last episode. But ETFs technically give out distributions. Single dividend stocks rather give out dividends. Now, what's the difference? Well, a distribution could be made up of many sources of income, including an eligible dividend, right? So there's a bunch of sources of income. There's other income or regular income, which is like something if you buy bonds, if you get a savings account, gives you interest. Fixed income, salary income, rental income in Canada is typically considered as regular income. So that's one source of income. Then you have Canadian eligible dividends, like if you would buy TD. There's capital gains, there's ROC, there's foreign income. So there's several classifications of income, and dividend income from a dividend stock is only one of pretty much 5 that you really need to know in Canada. So let's go through some examples together, and I'll show you some ETF examples. So if you would buy TD Bank, Royal Bank, Bell Canada, TELUS, and the income or the dividends that you get, that is 100% Canadian eligible dividend, which is taxed a certain way. ETFs technically give out distributions, which could be made up of several income sources, including eligible dividends. And a great example would be, for example, the Global X Active Canadian Dividend ETF, stock symbol HAL. So HAL holds Canadian dividend stocks, right? Like Royal Bank of Canada, Power Corp of Canada, etc., etc. So these are all dividend stocks. So it's actually it's still considered a distribution, not a dividend, because it's an ETF. But if we actually look at the breakdown of the tax classification for 2024 for HAL, for example, and by the way, it's very easy to get that. You click on our ETFs, and at the bottom there's a link that will bring you to the 2024 distributions for all the Global X ETF, right? All the Global X ETF. So here it is, by the way, it's right here at the top. You could see the sources of income that I just discussed. There's other income, which is pretty much a regular income. There's foreign income as well. So for example, if a Canadian ETF holds a US dividend stock like JP Morgan, that income is going to be classified as foreign income. There's foreign tax withheld. This is what the ETF is paying in withholding taxes, foreign withholding taxes. And here is the Canadian eligible dividend column. There's also capital gains. There's also return of capital, and you see the total. So here's the breakdown for HAL. Now, of course, because HAL or HAL holds Canadian dividend stocks, the majority, if not all, the income or that distribution is going to be classified as eligible Canadian dividend. And that's pretty much what you see. You see that the total distributions for the year 2024 for HAL were 60, 0.6155 and 0.61534. So over 99.9% of HAL's distribution is classified as Canadian eligible dividend. That makes complete sense. And there's a tiny portion classified as return of capital. So you see, because ETFs could have a combination of income sources classified different ways, that's why it's distribution, not dividend. Let's go through another example of the Global X Active Global Dividend ETF. So this is going to hold some US dividend stocks, some worldwide dividend stocks, and some Canadian dividend stocks. So obviously, as you probably already guessed, it's going to have many more sources of income than just Canadian eligible dividends. So if you look at HAS, which is right here, you actually see that they're out of 66.9 cents, there's about 38.7 cents out of that total that's considered foreign income. This is coming from dividend stocks outside of Canada. It's going to be classified as foreign income. You do see some eligible Canadian dividends, which means there are some Canadian dividend stocks in there. And you also see a little bit here in capital gains. Actually, a majority is capital gains and foreign income. That makes complete sense. So here you have a combination of foreign income, Canadian eligible dividends, and capital gains. And one last one we could look at is HAB. This is the Global X Active Corporate Bond ETF. And bonds, fixed income, typically everything under that sphere is going to be classified as regular income or other income, if you will. So if we look at HAB, you'll see that the majority, the total is 38.1 cents. The big majority, 36.8 cents, is classified as other income, as regular income, which is what fixed income or bonds are classified as. But there's a tiny bit of foreign income, tiny bit of capital gains as well. So there you have it, everyone. It's very simple. A dividend, really an eligible dividend, if you will, is coming from a dividend stock, like a TD Bank, like a Royal Bank of Canada, etc. If you just own TD in your account, you're getting 100% a dividend, or that income is going to be classified 100% as Canadian eligible dividends. ETFs, however, could be a combination of different income sources, including Canadian eligible dividends, especially if they hold a lot of Canadian dividend stocks, but it could have other stuff like, of course, other income or regular income, foreign income, capital gains, and return of capital. So there you go, everyone. That is really the difference between a dividend and a distribution. ETFs generate distributions. It's very easy to mix them up. I'm at fault to doing this too. Instead of saying distribution yield, I say dividend yield and things like that. So it's easy to mix them up, but that is really the difference. And stay tuned for the next episode, because we're continuing or wrapping up the dividend episodes. We're going to talk about, okay, how do you actually get paid now? How does the payments work when you hold dividend stocks or ETFs that give you distribution? So stay tuned and make sure to send this episode to your friends and family who are learning about investing, who are just starting, especially if they're interested in dividend stocks. We're going to have over 20 episodes in this series. So thanks again, guys. Hit that thumbs up button. I would really appreciate it. See you next time.